And welcome back to Fully Equipped. You know, I normally like to do this at the beginning if we're going to just go on and on about random stuff. So I'm just going to give you a warning for this week's episode. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. A lot of good gear stuff, but we're also going to get into a lot of non-gear stuff. And let's do it at the outset because, ladies and gentlemen, Uncle G nearly died in Italy. He's now in Tahoe. But he nearly died in Italy, and it was not from the food. And I'm going to have him recount that story. RB, since our last episode of the pod, has moved. And serial killer went ham at Payne's Valley, or so I heard. So there's a lot to dive into. But look, if we're going by priority, it's Uncle Gene. Uncle Gene, you're back from Italy. You had a great hike through the Dolomites, but just please recap, because every time you travel somewhere, like, something happens to you.
I swear, man, this time I was really trying to just straight and narrow it. I was with my 16-year-old daughter, and I was like, man, I'm not going to screw this up. Nothing's going to happen. And we went to Venice for 5 days. If anybody listening is into modern art, the Biennale in Venice is not to be missed. Every country in the world has a modern art exhibit. There's over 170, and it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But anyways, made it through 5 days of the Dolomites, up and down, 6,000 to 9,000 feet, 54 miles, finish the hike, check into the hotel, and there's this place called Tre Cime, and it's the equivalent of like Yosemite. It's just stunning. So I asked my daughter, I said, hey, you want to go check it out and take some pictures? She's like, we're not going to hike anymore, Dad. I said, no, we're not going to hike. So we get up there, and I'm just being a moron, and I'm on the trail, and I'm trying to take pictures. And I got this perfect picture, and I tripped over a rock, flipped off the trail, did a somersault, fell 5 feet off of a cliff, and landed on my back on a rock. Knocked the wind out of me, and then started sliding down the trail towards a cliff and grabbed onto both sides, shredded my hands on the rocks. Fortunately, I didn't fall to my death, or I wouldn't be here today. But and
nearly
like,
died. Nearly died.
And then I'm like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. My daughter's just looking at me. I got blood. I just left my DNA all over this mountain. I mean, it was just a mess. And then I'm like, you know, I wake up the next day. It was the second day. I was like, I need to go to the hospital. And then I'm like, I can't go to the hospital because I got my 16-year-old daughter with me. And if I get admitted, like, what is she going to do? So I got to tell you, man, the miracle of ibuprofen, you just keep popping that stuff and the pain goes away eventually.
Future spokesman for ibuprofen.
Oh, 100%.
We're going to get an ibuprofen sponsorship for the podcast very soon.
None of this constitutes professional medical advice. Please
consult
your physician.
No.
Just
this
pop them and you'll be fine.
Be fine.
It's just a flesh wound.
So made it through that. And then right now I'm in Tahoe for the Celebrity Challenge. And
with Rob O.T., right?
With Rob O.T., we're setting up on the 5th hole tomorrow on Thursday when this goes live. And we're competing against every athlete and celebrity out there, and closest to the pin. So it should be fun.
Has the robot gone up against anybody yet, or are you saving it until tomorrow? So I went up
against Fat Perez today, and I didn't know how to address him. Do you address him as fat? I honestly, I was like,
Mr. Fat?
Mr. Fat. I was so confused on that. And we went up against Larry the Cable Guy. And, you know, so tomorrow's going to be the big day. But
what an eclectic mix of just to kick things off. Fat Perez and Larry the Cable Guy.
It's interesting. But the big buzz here is Travis Kelce showed up on Friday. And I mean, Taylor Swift creates her own like weather. And this dude, just by dating Taylor Swift, people like want to be near him because it brings them more into Taylor's orbit. So yeah, there's all kinds of, you know, interesting pop culture things going on up here right now.
Jesus.
Well,
hard pass. Hard pass on all that.
Yeah, at least you didn't die from food poisoning or anything.
We're glad
I mean,
you're
if
here, Gene. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
if you're gonna shred yourself, at least you did it in a way where you can tell people that you nearly fell off the
Oh,
edge of a
man.
cliff.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one more example of why being fat is safer.
It totally is. We did on day 4, we did like 9 miles, and we went from 4,500 feet to 9,000 feet. And we started out in shorts and a t-shirt. And for the last 45 minutes of the hike, we were in the snow. This is the middle of June, late June. And it's wild. In the Dolomites, a lot of people don't know this. It was a major battlefront of World War One, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire came up, and they dug tunnels into one mountainside, and the Italians dug tunnels in the other, and they fired artillery shells at each other for 3 years, basically just blasting the mountain away. And you can see all of these tunnels and how they were set up, and they were fighting at like 8,000-9,000 feet. And from the Dolomites north, for like that northern Italy, it's really wild when you go there because their first language is German. So everywhere you go, they speak to you in German first, and then Italian, and then English. And so it's just an interesting part of the world from a kind of geopolitical standpoint.
Well, we're glad you're here. And
It's good to be back. Good to be back, fellas.
Yeah, it's good to see you upright. Okay, so that's Uncle Gene's skirt with death. Serial killer, dude, you had yourself a day. I heard at Payne's Valley.
Who told you this?
You did.
I did. Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say it's just.
I was going to tee
probably-
you up. So Kris and I talked, and then Kris told me about it, and I decided to have him discuss it on the podcast. There we go. There's how it all happened.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. I was going to.
I didn't have like a spy following you around on your trip through Missouri.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I posted my scorecard and all that on Swag Official, and
Of course you
was-
did on
Yeah, why
Swag
wouldn't I?
Official. Nowhere
Why
else
wouldn't
like
I?
normal, like Instagram or Twitter, but Swag Official.
Yeah, Swag Official. No,
Okay.
I gave them props for me playing well, and purchased a new head cover in the golf shop prior to me going out and playing Payne's Valley, and ended up going and shooting even par and had a fantastic day. And I hit the ball really well for me, especially after very little golf the last few weeks, and being in a truck and trailer and driving down from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 2 days before, and just absolutely beating the hell out of myself for the last few weeks on the road. Decided to go down and spend some time with the family, and played a nice round of golf at Buffalo Ridge and shot one over there. And then the next day played Payne's Valley, and Payne's Valley shot even par. And I'm going, who is this guy? Like, those are not typical rounds of golf for me. And
Must be the Swag head covers.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I posted it on Official. I was like, it's got to be the covers. It's got to be the covers, because my swing sucks, my game sucks, I can't putt,
The covers.
and it's all head covers. So, thank you, Swag Golf, for the quality covers, and helping me to shoot my new low round at Payne's Valley. And I play it every year. I've played it at least once, sometimes twice a year since it's opened, and this was the new low round at that particular golf course for me. So I was pretty stoked about it.
How would you rank Payne's Valley in all of your course experiences?
I mean, it's very picturesque. It is a beautiful, beautiful property. The layout is fun. It's not an overly difficult golf course. Most of the holes, you have a mile to miss it off the tee, and it bottlenecks on a few as you get closer to the greens. And the green structures, if you're out of position, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to 3-putt out there, as the green structures are pretty massive. So, I mean, you have to keep it in play and have to miss it in the right spots, specifically on the second shot. But, I mean, all in all, the golf experience is fantastic. The views are great. Turf conditions are great. Greens are always good. And, I mean, just the overall experience for a player is, I mean, it's 5-star. So zero complaints whatsoever. That's why we keep going back. I mean, my family lives in Missouri and has a little lake house in the Ozarks since my parents retired. So it's a pretty easy drive down, and we usually play 2 or 3 rounds of golf down there. And it is always something I look forward to every year.
So your putting was like a big, like, was that something that like was like contributed to your score, or was it like, what was the thing that did it?
The head covers. We're not
It
listening.
was the head
It's the head
It
covers.
was just the head covers?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
No,
Yeah,
I think it helped him.
wedges. I mean, so I usually go in streaks to where I'm like driving it and putting it well, or my irons and wedges are on. And it just happened to be one of those, like, I didn't have very many bogeys, and the bogeys that I did have, I backed it up with a birdie. My proximity to the hole was really good. And I mean, I just didn't get myself in trouble. It was almost like playing a round of golf when I actually cared about my game and practiced and like put time and effort into it. It's just, I didn't get in trouble off the tee. I wasn't too far away from the green if I did miss it, to where it was a relatively easy up and down. The misses I had were in the right places to make the up and down easier. Just didn't make a lot of mistakes. So I wouldn't even say that I made a lot of putts. It was just up and down and made those, or green and reg and 2-putt. So I think I had 4 birdies on the day, and the bogeys that I had, one of them was a 3-putt, and then the others were just lack of play, poor wedge shots. So gave myself a 10, 12, 15 footer for par and just didn't make it. But then I would turn around and back it up with a birdie. So
Nice.
pretty
Yeah,
boring round of golf, which is always good golf.
That's what they say. They say good golf is boring golf, right? And I know it's interesting that you say like we only had 1 3-putt, and like I can't make any promises, of course, but I think for our listeners out there who are looking to better control their face angle when putting, a good thing that they can check out, thanks to our good friends at Golf Pride, is the all new reverse taper putter grip. Because as Kris is aware, and as we like to tell you, the most crucial second in golf, that most crucial split moment, is the face angle of your putter just before it hits the golf ball. And the reverse taper design of the Golf Pride reverse taper grip helps you square the club face at impact better than a traditional parallel style putter grip, as proven in testing. And when we talk about these grips, there are 2 different sizes and 3 different shapes. There is the round, which is a universally popular for all different gripping techniques and features a traditionally round upper section that tapers into a wider lower hand. There's the pistol, classic pistol style, which really helps lock that top hand in, and then once again tapers down into a larger portion of the bottom grip. And then there's the flat, which works really well for golfers who prefer to have more of a palm-to-palm putting stroke. So if you're curious about any of the reverse taper grips from Golf Pride, or any of their full swing grips as well, head over to golfpride.com to learn more and control that moment of impact. Because it sounds like, Kris, you were controlling your moment of impact that day with not just your putter, but the rest of your clubs.
I was pretty happy with it, but I feel like after listening to you, if I would have made the grip change, I mean, that could have been 69, 70 easy without even breaking a sweat.
Could have been the difference. We don't know. We can't confirm. We can't legally say that would have made the huge difference, but I can say that it would have potentially, from my own editorialization, could have been the difference. So
could have been. Hey, can I, J-Wall, if I can take a couple more minutes here to
You can take
to
all the
share
time you want.
something.
You can take all the
I
time
want to
you
share
want.
something with you guys, and for the people that actually take the time to watch us on YouTube. I came home after weeks on the road, and I had a box. Now, you and J-Wall, or you and RB, I'm sorry, get boxes all the time. I'm sure Gene gets boxes all the time. For me, it's a rarity.
Gene gets boxes from me, and then I say, test this for me, Gene.
That's fair. That's fair. So our buddy Yags and our friends at Cobra, they sent me a box.
Don't do
No,
this to me. Don't do this to
I-
me because I'm a lefty, and I got 1 7-iron, which I guess I should
came
be
home.
grateful for. But go ahead.
And Mr. Yagley sent
just
me
gonna-
this box,
I'm gonna
I was gonna say,
beat
it's a
him.
small box. That box doesn't have golf clubs in it.
Oh, but it does.
but it does.
but it
It
does.
does.
Ah, look
It
at
does.
that.
And
man,
I have to tell you, like these were a very nice thing to come home to, and I am so stoked to
Cobra
build these.
limited heads. Not
No big deal.
not
No
too
big
bad.
deal. So I
What are
know
those going? Those are going for like $3K, right? Wasn't that the price for if you could get your hands on them? $3K.
if you
was
could
it.
get your hands on them, you just
Yeah.
you gotta know the right people. And Mike, that is huge. I know you listen to the pod. Big thank you again. Super excited to come home to those. And
Yeah, big thanks
and
that you sent a set of righty heads to a righty guy. Yeah, congratulations. Good job.
lefties get discriminated against. You're a second-class citizen. Just embrace it, deal with it, and let me have my moment and say thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Can't wait to build them, test them, and get them in the bag.
Those
You
irons are really
lefties-
good.
You lefties have some issues. Some guy came up to me on the range and asked me if the robot could swing left-handed, and I said no. And he's like, "We're discriminated against everywhere."
I
was like,
stopped.
"Hey,
I
man,
stopped saying that because it makes me sound like I'm a lunatic.
bitter and cranky.
Even more than I am. So yeah,
I would love to walk into a
stopped.
sporting goods store and be like, "Do you guys have any left-handed baseball bats?" just to see what they say. Because hockey has. I mean, same with I guess tennis rackets are the same, but like hockey. I mean, hockey sticks do come in left-handed, but yeah, it'd be funny to ask for a left-handed baseball bat.
Oh my gosh. Man, yeah, those irons are awesome. By the way, I think that was the one thing when I tested the limited irons against my gamers, I was really worried that they were going to be good. And I haven't. My gamer irons have been so good that I haven't really asked for full sets of anything in a while. I've pretty much just if I'm curious, I'll get a 7-iron and I'll have it built up. So I had that limited built up to the exact same specs as my gamer, and it was like 12 yards longer than my gamers. And dispersion wasn't as tight. It was a little bit wider. Which made me feel better about sticking with my stuff. And it's like I know my yardages with mine. I would have had to change it up a little bit, but they're really freaking sweet.
Same
So,
shafts as the gamer.
Same shafts.
Ooh. Just begs the question: if you would have gotten fit for it, would you still be in the same shaft?
Probably not.
Mm-mm.
But you know what? I'm kind of glad that I had it built with that shaft so that I can poke holes in like what's wrong with those irons. Because yes, that was my next thought was, man.
That actually leads us to like a topic that I think is pretty good, Kris, is that I know Jonathan, you as well. We can talk about this part. You were recently at TPI. I point up, and I don't know if I'm on the screen when people see this, if I'm pointing up to you like the Brady Bunch, and I'm like,
I was
"Hey,
gonna
how's
say
it going?"
this total Brader bunch.
Yeah. That was a reference. See, I can handle the old reference sometimes.
Arby.
Yeah, there we go, way down. But one of the questions I posted my numbers. I went to the Titleist National Fitting Facility here, just north of Toronto, and the question that I got the most when I posted my numbers.
Why did you go?
So I went to test the new GT drivers and fairway woods from Titleist.
Yep.
I was fit. I can tell you, I was fit into a GT4, and the biggest question, two questions were, one was about my driver spin, which we can talk about if we want. But number one question: did you try the same shaft every time? Like, did you compare the shafts? And so the answer to that is yes, because I actually ended up fitting into that shaft because we started from scratch, worked our way around a circle, and ended up back at the other one, which I think is a common practice. But what I did was when they gave me the option, I took the second option that was very, very comparable to that shaft because I already had that shaft in my other driver. So this way I can compare back and forth, which is, again, it's a luxury to have. But if you're going to have another driver to test, I don't want the same shaft because I can just put the shaft from the other one into it and whatever. But the reason being is people seem to think that just like by comparing shaft to shaft, you're singling out like the one variable, which is true. But the other part of that is the variable that you're trying to control, quote unquote, the shaft, could work not as well in that particular head. And we have seen this many times before when it comes to the fitting process is, yes, this shaft works really well for me in this head because of the center of gravity and its center of gravity location relative to the shaft axis and the balance point because of the head weight and all these different things. Doesn't mean that it's going to work into the next head. or even loft to loft when it comes to certain models because of the way some will launch lower. And that was the question I wanted to lead to you, Kris, is we see it so often that like some tour players don't change too often because they're looking for a feel and they work the head to kind of work for them. But in reality, for most golfers, like the golf club that you're getting fit for is a unit. Yes, it's cool to like eliminate quote unquote a variable, but trying to control that variable being the shaft could mean that for that particular head, you're actually not getting the most performance out of it.
I mean, it's spot on. And I will typically ask people that request the same shaft or say, oh, that's just the shaft that I play. And I'll ask them at the end of the day, what is a golf shaft? What is shaft fitting? What is it that we're looking for? And I get a variety of different answers. And I mean, the most simplistic way that I try to explain it to people is a golf shaft is a timing mechanism. And that timing mechanism allows the player to have a consistent relationship of where that club head is in time and space as they swing it. And if the timing mechanism is matched up to the player appropriately, it gives them an opportunity to return the face to square and find the consistency in ball striking that they're looking for with that particular golf club. So, and to your point, RB, if you take two different driver heads and they can be the same static weight, but because of CG placement, because of discretionary weight being moved, heel side, toe side, high, low, front, back, whatever the case may be, that in turn may affect and impact the consistency of that timing mechanism. So you may see more droop, you may see more deflection, it may start to present more loft or less loft. So, I mean, the shaft is, it has to be complementary to the head that you're playing. So you see a player like John Rahm that played that tour green forever, and you see a player like Dustin Johnson that played that speeder forever. And, it kind of begs the question, like, if they would have started from scratch, like you said, and fit it independently and then worked it together to create a cohesive part, would their driving stats have been better? Would they have seen more performance out of the particular shaft and head combination that they were playing on that year? I mean, begs the question, who knows? But yeah, I work shaft and head independently, but I start with club head and fine tune with shaft.
Yeah, actually, and that's interesting. It's like you mentioned the point about like changing and like sticking something for so long. Keith Mitchell, he posted with the help of I think the Mizuno crew over in Europe because he's there for this Genesis Scottish Open. He's going to be there for the Open next week. Is he changed driver shafts for the first time in like 8 years? He'd always been playing he'd been playing the original T1100 and switched into he didn't say which one he switched into, but he had the crew. Shout out to Alex on the Mizuno truck and the rest of the crew over there in Europe. I know they're like, first of all, wonderful people and like very good at what they do as far as their craftsmanship is concerned. And Keith was like, yeah, two something hours on the range, a bunch of heads, finally found a new combo, letting go of this like 8 or 9 year old driver shaft model. And I think that's important because it shows how much in depth you have to go into this process and that you have to be willing to change. And it doesn't mean what you're using isn't good. It just means that there are options that might work better for that particular combo altogether. And I've had the same experience, which is funny. I went to a different OEM a couple weeks ago, went through a fitting experience there, which I can talk about at a later date. And my fitter from the previous time, really nice guy. I'm not going to mention his name because it might give away where I was at. And most people figured it out, but I'm not going to say it. He was like, oh, where are your LZs? And I said, I want to try something new. And I was into the new True Temper mids. And to be fair, very similar shaft profile in general. But it was just, I wanted to try something else and it worked very well. And then I even actually put them in the wedges because they're a little lighter. And I wanted to try a lighter wedge shaft. And it was working during the whole fitting process. So I think you have to approach it with an open mind. Sure, you can always go back to what you rely on, but it comes down to like how that works as a whole, which brings me down another rabbit hole. Gene, I can't wait for you to hear this one. I posted the other day, Hopkins golf, like popped into my head. It came online.
I saw that.
The guy, he used to work for Cleveland Strixon, decided to do his own, before it was actually like popular and cool, was his own like direct to consumer customizing wedge company where the wedges were built out of, I believe, a UPS depot. They had this like little workshop. It was this fascinating setup.
Shout out
VJ
Greg
Singh-
Hopkins.
Yep. VJ
Greg
Singh played their
Hopkins,
clubs.
yeah.
VJ Singh played their clubs. At one point, they had Metalwoods before they never went out of business. They stopped producing clubs. They kind of went out of business. They never declared bankruptcy or anything like that. I think they just kind of like had their inventory, sold it out, and just like, we don't want to do this anymore. You have to ask Mr. Argyle Sweater, Mr. Hopkins, which is a classic commercial. I had so many people reference that when I posted it. But someone else sent me this, and I want to give him credit. Geo Putters online. He sells Scotty Cameron putters. Really cool guy. Very like longtime PGA pro. He goes, have you ever heard of a Trigon golf?
Trigon, yeah.
Trigon. See, I knew Gene would know it. This is why I bring this stuff up, because I knew Gene would know this. So I was like, what? I don't know. I have no idea what this is. So I Googled it. They, of all people, hired who I have self-declared the killer of golf club companies, Nick Price. Sorry, Nick.
Oh, yeah.
Great major champion, lovely ball
Yeah.
striker. But every company you ever played their clubs, they for some reason just stopped producing clubs. We've got Sonortech, we've got Ram, we've got Atragon, which I had never even heard of before. So there's another one that you murdered off. Nick, again, I love you as a person. You seem like you're a great guy, but there's been some mistakes in the club world. He then sent me this thing online. He found this like club.
I think Atragon was like a molded club.
So they were from the aerospace industry, and the guy
they were based in Southern California.
Yeah, I knew this is why I knew Gene would know this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure in some point in time they ran into each other.
Oh yeah.
So the club head was molded together with the shaft, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, because of the shaft versus head conversation. Because this thing was like one freaking piece. It wasn't like the Arnold Palmer gripless driver. We're going to send people down a Google wormhole at this point tonight. But like there was like the Arnold Palmer gripless driver, which is again another bad idea. But the head and the shaft were like molded together from like whatever it was.
Yep.
And
what was the benefit of doing this?
Better energy transfer was the thing. And there is, if you Google it, there's an LA Times article. You know what? If you're listening to this, I will post a link to the LA Times article. I think you can read it for free. But like the whole, again, from the aerospace industry, the reason Nick took this deal apparently was because he got a percentage of the company when it was founded, because he saw what happened with Greg Norman, because Greg Norman got a piece of Cobra when it was founded.
Made
he was
a
playing
fortune.
it. And by the time it went to IPO and then it got like flipped again, Norman's at the time, mid 90s, his contract was worth like $25 million. So Nick Price was taking like $100,000 a year, which was a lot of money at the time for a club contract. Plus he was given a percentage of the company up to like $1 million worth of sales. Like it was nuts. It was this crazy thing. Everyone was trying to catch up to Greg with these like club contracts. They never could. I think he chased the money, but it was just very, very interesting. So yeah, it's a wormhole to go down. I will share the link to the LA Times article, because you hear all of this like hopefulness. There's a speculator who's talking about, the equipment, at the time, again, we have all these new brands now, but the person was like, breaking into the premium equipment market is like very, very hard. You have companies like Ping and Callaway and TaylorMade and what were doing the other one? Cobra at the time. Those were like the big four that they cited in the article. And I'm like, well, PXG did it. They just did it with a ton of money, right? Like they were all in on this thing, right? So it goes to show that you can create disruptors if you're like committed and you make good stuff, which we've tested on the robot. The PXG as an example does really good stuff. But yeah, this driver never took off.
Well, the limiting factor was it was made out of, as I recall, some sort of plastic. And this was back in the day
crazy.
when we didn't really even kind of understand smash factor. Like launch monitors were just in their infancy, and it simply just didn't go as far. And it was a function of the fact that the plastic just didn't have a rebound velocity that metal had at the time. And so it was now, what's interesting is, and I'm always fascinated about this in golf, but in all, you talk to entrepreneurs, you talk to people in VCs, and they'll all tell you the same thing, that being first in the field is sometimes a liability. And they actually, from a weight standpoint, because of this plastic, they were, kind of where TaylorMade is right now as far as being able to work, with carbon. they had that conceptually, and they were really smart. They were aerospace guys. The problem was they simply didn't understand rebound velocity and the low energy transfer from the club head to the ball. The shaft and head combination thing was novel. That didn't really seem to matter very much. But what killed them was it's at the end of the day, when you get a new golf club and you go out to your par four and you don't carry that bunker that you've been carrying with your old golf club, that golf club gets thrown away. It's just that simple. I mean, distance is this measuring stick. And if you didn't have another one, the C4 from Callaway, that was another one. Helmstetter was way ahead of the game as far as carbon was concerned. And he was looking at that from Japan, from Yonex, and all these companies. Dick Helmstetter was the president of Callaway at the time. The problem was it had a real low rebound velocity to the point, and that was in the beginning of the launch monitor stages. I thought there was something wrong with my setup because I was like, there's no way Callaway with a $20 million budget would be releasing this club. And sure enough, it failed in the marketplace, and it was because it didn't go anywhere. So who cares if you lost less distance on a high toe shot if when you hit it on a center shot, it was 5-7 yards shorter. So they're both examples. They were both really out front from a material standpoint, but unfortunately they were too far out front. And in being that far out front, they kind of lost sight of the number one thing for a driver, and it still exists to this day, and it's distance. And anybody can tell you different. Workability, accuracy, bullshit. It's distance. And
I disagree. Sir.
So delusional. And what are you talking
Always
about?
have been, always will be.
You just told me. I'm not going to name the company. You told me you were like, hey, I just tested this new club and I got a 1.5 smash factor. You were just giddy about it.
Well,
that's distance, my brother. That 1.5.
It's the efficiency of the golf club.
It's the efficiency of the golf club.
It's the dispersion, the tight dispersion. I don't need the distance.
John's a big draw guy. He can get those smash factors up there. I've seen it.
Oh man. Oh, that's why I love this pod. The banter is great.
We do have some stuff to touch. I guess we're 35 minutes in.
Well, but I feel like we've had, we kept the non-gear stuff to the front of the pod. We didn't go that long on that, and we've been having some good conversations. But yeah, as RB mentioned, that both of us, one up in Canada, and then I went out to TPI this week to check out the new GT product. I got to tell you, TPI, they've been doing a lot of renovations out there. Oh boy, does it look beautiful?
So good.
Oh my gosh. And so right now oh man. All right. So I've been flying in to San Diego because of the 2-hour time difference from Dallas. I usually just to get to hang with the fam as long as possible. I've been taking like the last flight out of Dallas. It's like an 11 p.m. flight. And it makes for a very long day the next day because I try and turn around and make it a day trip if possible to get back home. But I was going to bring my driver with me. And I got to DFW airport and the B terminal. I mean, DFW is huge. The B terminal, they had a major accident. I don't even know how you can have a major accident at an airport terminal because you shouldn't be going that fast in the first place. But the traffic was so backed up that you couldn't even like get on the exit to get to B. So I had to go to C, and I'm like, screw it, I can't bring my driver with me. And so right now I'm currently playing a Ping G430 LST that I really like. It's a good driver. It's stable. Distance is good. I have no problems. And so I was a little bit disappointed, but it actually allowed me to start blank slate, which was probably a good thing because my G430 LST has the Chrome 2.0 Ping shaft, which some people are like, you're playing the Ping shaft in that driver, like you're not playing anything aftermarket. This is the best product. I tested everything. That shaft is awesome. And, I would say Ping's probably one of the only OEMs that makes a really good, like, made for shaft. It's not cheap. It's really solid. And I know a bunch of other guys out there that play too. Shane Bacon, fellow lefty. Shane's in the ping driver shaft as well. So I kind of figured, well, I don't think I'm going to be putting a ping driver shaft into a GT driver head anyway. So let's just start fresh. And I gotta say, shout out to it. I don't want to. I'm going to get off the rails here for a second, but RB posted something about his numbers on social media, and a guy commented to him in the just below his post with his numbers from his fitting, and basically it was, how does the average Joe get this treatment? Meaning, like, how do they get to go to the National Fitting Center and get fit? They said, I had a fitting with a club champion and other fitters, but they don't put in the attention to detail, and I feel that's what's missing. I want to go deeper, but I feel that I get the new recruit and not the guys that know the number. And man, I got to tell you,
I did reply to him.
You did reply. Do you want to get into that briefly? Because I'm just going to say, like, the importance of, like, we have Kris on this pod, and Kris is an unbelievable fitter. I'm not just saying that because he's on the podcast, but my gosh, and I'm going to get to this on my experience at TPI, but man, does a knowledgeable fitter just, I mean, they can help you solve so many things and find the blind spots that you probably wouldn't have even considered. It's so important to have a knowledgeable fitter.
Yeah, and like, this is, so for the people who asked, like, most OEMs have a fitting facility that they have their trained fitters at. So for me, North Toronto, there's a Callaway one, there's a TaylorMade one, there's a Titleist one, and there's a Ping one as well. And so, like, there are opportunities to go to the places to get fit, right? So there's the first thing. So you're dealing with those fitters who deal with those company products and know it very well, know it inside and out. Titleist National Fitting Facility, you can book a fitting if you want. The guy next to me was just a customer who booked a fitting. So I think this is where, and it gets frustrating. This is where it gets extremely frustrating, because I myself worked as a fitter for a very long time. I can still go to the range and fit people and go through that whole process and understand not just the numbers, but the communication process with the golfer. And this is the biggest thing. And I had this discussion, which I know we're going to hopefully get to this as well. Titleist just launched a golf ball fitting app. I got to go through that process too while I was there. Before I went into the driver fit, just hitting balls and warming up, started with the wedges and the 7-irons and the whole bit that is part of the app, which is very cool. And I asked, like, afterwards, I had the chance to talk to the development team, not that day, but another day afterwards. And I said, does this help expedite the fitting process and create an environment where you are arming people who you've already trained with even more information so they can be confident in not only answering questions, but being able to deliver something with, like, the right information in the way that it should be delivered? And they said, in short form, yes. And the reason I've said this, and I've asked, this is not a Titleist focus thing, I've asked every single OEM that I've ever been to, it's like, tell me straight up, the reason you guys segment products, not just for the consumer for fitting, but it also makes fitting faster for your fitters, because you know which product like players will fit into, and then it helps speed up the fitting process. Look, these are in most cases publicly traded companies. They make money by selling golf clubs. So the faster that they can sell golf clubs and simplify the fitting process, which is why you see AI and, like, all these different fitting programs being developed by companies, is because the weakest link in every single fitting process at every single fitter is the fitter. I'm sorry. I'm just, it's straight up. It's Kris, I know you're nodding right now because
you're exactly right.
But that is what it is, because you can have a launch mart, you can have the best golf balls in the world, you can have every freaking shaft and clad combination on that wall. But if that person who's in front of you ruins that experience for you, first of all, you hate going to fittings now at this point, and you don't trust the person. You created this, like, lack of trust, and it's the most expensive part of any golf club company is training people and training fitters. It takes a lot of time, and it's why when you have people like Kris, or you have people like James Lee at Ping, or who is, like, an amazing fitter, and I know he's the guy that I've worked with, and I know you've worked with as well, Jonathan. The entire crew at Titleist. I don't want to just single out one. Like, there are so many people at all of these different companies, and then we show off these videos. Look, shout out to them. Club champion Ian Fraser. I used to work with him when it was TXG in Canada here. Great fitter, great communicator. That's why he's really good at what he does. People see these things online. They see us go to these fittings. They hear us talk about it. And then they go somewhere and they deal with somebody who's not properly trained or doesn't have the skills or is still learning the skills. Let's be honest. Like, people have to start somewhere. And it becomes, I didn't really felt like I learned. And it, first of all, it's frustrating to me, but it's because you either have to search out the places where you're going to go, where you're going to get the most knowledgeable people. And I know that's frustrating because there's so many fitting environments, but that's where it comes down to. Kris, I'll hand this over to you, is for True Spec as an example, like, that's why you as your knowledgeable person, I'm pointing to Kris for this audio format. I'm getting riled up, but I'm pointing to Kris here at the screen, is that's why you are all over the country talking to fitters in stores, because you and the team know that those fitters are the front line of the company with every single consumer. And you're there to help them understand the process so they give the customers the absolute best experience possible.
Sure. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head there when you're talking about essentially the best part of the fitting and the worst part of the fitting is the fitter. And it's not just isolated to our industry. I mean, there's a lot to be said for experience. There's a lot to be said for the ability to communicate. And something that I kind of tell people is what helps to differentiate good from bad or successful versus a challenge is the ability to take the same piece of information and explain it 27 different ways so that whomever it is that you have in front of you has that aha moment with you and it clicks. And so you can be the most analytical and intelligent person that knows everything backwards and forwards. And I've seen this with instructors, and they're sitting there talking to Mrs. Haverkamp about P positions and how to get to gamma force versus alpha force. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the look on her face. And while the information that they are giving their client is accurate and potentially the right information, the ability for them to communicate in a way that client understands is just completely being lost. And there's no way that I can say somebody that I train and that comes out of our training program at True Spec is going to have those skills and be able to provide a comparable experience for the guest or for the client that somebody like RB or myself would. So someone that is essentially a student of this industry and a student of this craft understands the science behind it, understands how it is that these OEMs design product and how these products are going to be applicable for the individual, and then explain why it works. And that's where so many people kind of trip up. I hear more times than I can count just regurgitation of statistics and numbers and facts and all of this stuff, and it just completely washes over the client, and they go, well, all of that's great, but how does that help me play better golf? And then that's where the breakdown in communication happens, and they don't have the knowledge base or the experience in that particular product or field to then reword what it is that they just packaged up with fancy vocabulary and terminology and say, well, you hit it here, so it works better. That's at the end of the day, all you need to know. So, I mean, I can give you all of the analytical crap as to why, but at the end of the day, you swing this way, deliver the club like this, hit it here, ball goes there. Is that what you want? Yes. Good. Then we're
Perfect.
done.
Yeah. And that's like,
then we're done.
So going back to like kind of doing full circle here, like back in my fitting, like I start asking very particular numbers because I know what I'm looking for. I know there are people out there who are very curious. Some people don't care. I was asking about my tack angle, my face to path, like how's it right now? Like, is this where this is where it normally is? And the other part of this is as well, based on the numbers that I saw, and you can go find them on social media, no, You can find it on my ex Twitter. I think I posted in the stories. I'll repost it on Instagram. I got a lot of stuff to remember to post now. But you can also only get fit for the swing you have that day. And for me, my swing to path, my face path relationship was a little different than it normally is, but still hitting it well. So people were asking, like, how come the spin was up versus your previous driver that you came in with, but you're actually hitting it further? And I explained why. And I said, my miss is left. That day, my miss was a little bit left. I don't generally miss too far right or left, but it was just more of a closing the face to the path. So I was getting these lower kind of knucklers. So when I missed one with my other driver, it was going sub 2,000 and going 235 yards in the air. New model stays up in the air. It stays above 22, 23. So now I'm hitting my ideal numbers when I hit a miss, and I still have the distance on the shots that I was hitting well based on the averages. And so that's the other thing. When someone's like, I got fit for this driver, but now I don't hit it very well. Well, you based on your skill level and all these different things, you have to factor in that the fitter can only fit you for the swing you bring that day as well. And so I'm asking these questions, like I'm warming up on a launch monitor track, man. And I said, what's my 6-iron swing speed? Because I know it's around like 90, 91. And I said, okay, I'm not quite warmed up yet. I'm hitting the high 80s. I'm like, okay, I'm not quite warmed up there. Start getting it. And like, okay, now let's hit balls now. I know that. So I'm able to like assess that. Not everyone knows that information. So the fitter's just trying to dial in what's working for you. And the only time they gave information, to your point, was, what'd you think of that? How'd you think of that? They're going through their decision tree of like trying to figure things out. I tried not to look at the golf club, just like when I went through the fitting experience with Aaron Dillon, looking at the bounce angles and all that stuff on the grinds on the sole. So I can understand why it's very frustrating for consumers, but and this is why I encourage you to really dive into like what you're getting into. I'm not saying it's up to you, because look, like you should be getting the thing that you're paying for. But if you're looking for the experience where you really want to dive in, sometimes you have to travel a little bit further to go to those facilities where if you're looking for an OE, like a specific OEM, go to their fitting center. That's where you're going to get. I'm not saying the other places aren't good. Like, that's not what I'm saying here. But if you're looking for that next level, diving into particular products, that is the place to go for it. And again, I went to Titleist, hit the GT, gained a couple miles an hour ball speed, gained the extra carry. And for me, I moved into a model that was different from the one that I had, and I really liked it. So, which we'll touch on. We'll touch on the insides out later on, but whatever.
Yeah, we can't talk about anything that's going on with this one, but we can't talk about our experiences. But yeah, I mean, just going back to the importance of a good fitter, because going in without a driver, and I'll be honest, I really wasn't all that excited about the possibility of changing drivers, because I'm pretty happy with what I have. And I just started swinging. They handed me a TSR to start, TSR3, and I'm swinging it. And here's how fragile my golf ego is. So out of TPI, they've had a lot of work done. They have a new short course, which I didn't have a chance to try out because I crammed in so much content into a small window and then had to hoof it to the airport. But the short course looks awesome. But they don't have the full range set up just yet. So while I was there, I warmed up and I'm hitting to a flag straight in front of me. And I'm just flushing. I've been working on my swing and really looking at my numbers on the GC quad. And I was noticing I was pretty toe down, more than I thought at impact. So I've really been working on trying to flatten things out. And man, it's made a world of difference. I was just flushing wedges and irons. And even my fitter at Titleist, who I've worked with the past couple of times, Joey Saywitz, Joey's awesome. Just a really good dude. And he even looked and he's like, dude, I think you're ready. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely ready. So, what do you want me to do? And he's like, hey, I want you to aim at this target. And because of the work that they still have going on the back side of the range, beyond the screen that I was hitting to, I couldn't hit towards that green, couldn't hit straight. So I'm hitting towards this, a giant metal trash container down the left side, but I've got to angle it off a little bit. So now I'm hitting at an angle. And I got to be honest, going for a guy that doesn't like to go like left of center line, now that I'm kind of going even more left of where I want to be and I'm having to like set up askew from where I just was like a total mess.
Are you one of those guys that like if the tee decks are not the tee markers are not parallel, you get really pissed off?
I'm
like,
one of those RB. I
don't
am one
even
of those
think about
guys.
it. It literally
No,
doesn't even clue into my head. I never think about
I
it.
am one of
People
those
complain.
guys that if my, and I was talking to Joey about this, if my shadow, if I'm playing on a day where my shadow is directly behind me and I can see it out of the corner of my eye, you guys are laughing, but I'm going into like the really, I'm getting vulnerable here about my golf game. But if I could see my swing out of the corner of my eye and my shadow is long, so playing late in the day, mostly is when I'm having this happen, I start seeing all of the flaws in my backswing, and I am done. I am done.
Can't play, just doesn't
my
work.
swing, no, my swing is just I start smothering it. I'm just got the snappies. It's bad. So thankfully, my shadow was in front of me. It made me happy, but it was just
Gene's
it was
shaking
just
his head too.
It was just setting. Gene's hungry. He wants to get out of this shit show. But it started off on the wrong foot, and Joey was like, "All right, man, let's just stop for a second." And it's easy for a fitter to say, like, let's just get you a different shaft. Let's just we'll figure it out. But he's like, come, I want you to come take a look at this. And we go back and we look, and he's pointing to the smash factor, which you already talked about. And if you don't know smash factor, it's ball speed divided by club speed. And it's a way to measure the energy efficiency, energy being transferred from the club head to the golf ball. And the closer you get to 1.5, the more efficient you are, the more hyper efficient you are. I was not getting close to 1.5. And so he's like, I want to work on this. I want to get you more efficient with this golf club. So he's not even working about directional stuff or anything else. He just wants to work on smash factor. And I think it's maybe the very first time that I've had a fitter just say, like, let's start here and work our way back. And it didn't take long. I mean, I made the GT is great, but for me, I think the coolest moment was, and this kind of speaks to the stuff that we can't talk about, but being somebody that wants kind of almost like an anti-right driver, and I'm a lefty, my like do not want to see it shot is, and Kris knows this for sure, and from having played with me when we were out in San Diego, but I do not want to see that snappy to the right. Anything that I'm like smothering and it's just shooting that direction, that's like the worst. And I can always feel it because it's almost like it's like indiscernible coming off the face. It just feels really marshmallowy to me. I can't really feel it because I already know that I've just totally covered the golf ball and it's gone. And it knuckles and it's probably like 1,000 RPM spin, maybe 1,100. The driver. So Joey working with me, we did the Tony Finau where we went shorter to work on really working on impact consistency. And I went from 45.25 on my gamer to 44.5. And I've never been sub 45 in my life. And that made a big difference. But to be able to get the improvements in the overall consistency of impact with, I hit like 2 or 3 where I was like, okay, if I couldn't see the result, I would have said that's a snappy. It's just knuckling to the right. And the ball hung in the air at 2,000. I was getting 2,000 spin on these shots, which was just so cool to see. So there's a huge benefit to having a fitter who just doesn't start like the same way with everybody. Because I even asked Joey, I was like, do you do this with everybody that you fit? Like start with smash factor? He's like, no, like you fit the person in front of you. And everybody's different. And for you, it was like, let's work on getting your impact in a better spot. So like, shout out to Joey for just like teaching me something. I'm so used to kind of, again, I've talked about it before, I'm a creature of habit in the way that I have my clubs built. And he really just sort of opened my eyes to like, hey, there's a different way to fit you for this. So let's go that direction, and found a really great driver that I'm happy with and excited to try out. Ended up also in as Gene mentioned, a 16.5 degree GT that I was hitting like 270, 275. So it's nice to have a 3-wood that you can do that with. And I had back-to-back balls with a 3-wood where the smash was 1.5, 1.5. So extremely efficient. And then to wrap it up with a 7-wood, I think I'm going to actually add a 7-wood to the arsenal. I don't know if it's going to be a regular edition, but it's definitely going to be nice to have a course-dependent 7-wood because I could just hit that thing and it was just on a string. So to have it like 230 with a 7-wood was perfect. So really, really fun experience. Thanks. Shout out to the guys at Titleist. They left me with some fun goodies. Did you get these, RV? Did you get this?
I did. I didn't share them yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
They're pretty awesome. If you're watching it on the Fully Equipped YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But they have these new valuables pouches that's like almost like a patchwork. It's one of their head covers, and then they just cut it short and turned it into a valuables pouch, which is awesome. And
I
then
mean, it's no swag item, Kris, but yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Well,
it is no swag item. I got to agree with that. But it is pretty awesome. Oh my gosh, here
Look
we
at
go.
you just pulling stuff out again. Jeez Louise.
This is going to be a long pod as I'm looking at it, but we haven't had a pod. We haven't had a pod in a little bit. We'll get into bag. We're going to bag.
That's pretty
stuff.
cool, though.
That is
Does
awesome.
the liner
awesome.
of your valuables pouch have all of the U.S. currency?
Nope, it's just really fuzzy.
I mean,
and makes me happy. The other piece that I thought was cool was this guy. It's a GT head cover keychain, but it also has a bottle opener on it.
Oh, that is cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So your kids are old enough now where like you probably come home with that stuff and they're like, and I'm sure Gene, it's like when packages show up, your kids probably don't even look at it anymore. But like my oldest daughter is like just about like 7, and what is that, Daddy? Can I have that, Dad? Can I? I'm like, first of all, you don't need a bottle opener. But like, I'm like, sure. I mean, whatever, right? A lot of this stuff she'll like play with it for a couple days and then it ends up away. But yeah, no, they got some pretty cool swag in there. Which is
it was awesome. But yeah, anyway, we'll get deeper into the GT products. But again, I felt like very successful fitting sessions for both myself and RB.
I was gonna say
different ways
because again, we know it's out there. We know that the Titleist GT is in use all over the tours, all over the place. But for those who are looking for great value, and I mean, as someone said to me when I printed off my numbers, what you're also telling me is the TSR is still pretty freaking good. And I'm like, yeah, of course it is. It didn't get worse. It's just, they're looking at different ways to improve things. But if you're someone who's looking for a TSR right now, you know where you could go? You go to fairwayjockey.com, because right now, TSR drivers and TSR metalwoods are on sale. They're $449 before any custom option shafts. And if you are looking for custom shafts, Fairway Jockey has the world's most extensive collection of aftermarket shafts and custom equipment built to tour level specifications. So you can find all that stuff there. They offer the lowest prices on custom built clubs, up to 20% less than the average national quote from club fitters. And you can take an extra 10% off by using the promo code Fully Equipped, FULLYEQUIPPED. That could mean less than 30% than a quote that you're going to get from one of those top club fitters. And if you are looking for small batch items, I'm not saying they are still available. Kris himself has his little personal set there. But if you are looking for cool items like I've mentioned before, Cobra Limited 3D irons, custom Scotty camera putters, all kinds of different wedges, Titleist Vokey A+ wedges, I believe are also available on fairwayjockey.com. Just got released today or yesterday, whenever you're listening to this. So again, head over to fairwayjockey.com, use code Fully Equipped, find all of your custom fitted gear there, included, like I said, on sale, TSR Metalwoods. Go check them out.
There we go. Okay, gonna keep this tight because Uncle Gene's about ready to fall asleep, and he's also very.
You got to bring that robot talk back.
I'm hangry.
He's hangry. But I did want to bring up. So we've been doing a series on golf.com called Bag Spy, where from the amount of time that RB and I spend out on tour, we're shooting guys' bags, and it's always fun to just go through instead of just posting the photos. Let's analyze what's in there. Let's point out some of the more interesting things. And we just got done doing our 8th bag spy in the last month and a half. And we've had some cool ones. So we highlighted, if you just go to golf.com, just type in bag spy, and you'll be able to find them. But we highlighted the gear, the interesting stuff in Rory's bag, the interesting stuff in Brian Harman's bag, Victor Hovland, Jackson Koiven, who's the the Red Hot Am who was playing at the Memorial. And there's so many amateurs that are just tearing it up on tour right now, which is just insane. And also Adam Scott, and we've got a guy named
Adam
Xander
Scott's has changed
Shoffley.
probably a bunch though.
Yeah, as I say, that's changed a lot since then.
Makes our job harder.
Xander Shoffley, and then a guy by the name of Tiger Woods. So we went through their bags and setups, and all the photos that we take are all of our in-hand photos. So anything that we're getting when we're out on tour, we're taking those photos of the guys' gear when we're out there. But I just wanted to point out 5 things that I thought were really cool, or just, I guess some of them were trends that I saw, and other ones were just things that, you know, they just stand out when you're going back through a lot of these bag spies. The first one is that the head cover game is extremely strong out on the PGA Tour. It's a shocker, I know, but I went back and looked, and it's, you know, yeah, sure, there are a lot of guys that still have, if they're under contract with a manufacturer, they have, you know, TaylorMade or Titleist or Callaway head covers, but we've seen a lot more of the like golf club variety. I mean, Rory McIlroy, for instance, has a Hoopy Match Club out in Georgia, which is a pretty special place. He has an Hoopy putter cover, which, you know, I think that's kind of cool. Like I've heard it's a golf course that he absolutely loves, and, you know, I think it's cool that he has the head cover.
I believe he is a member there.
He is a member
from
there.
what has been said. Yeah,
he's a member there. I don't know if he's confirmed that, but I've heard it enough times where I think he's definitely a member.
He's an actual member there, whereas like Oak Hills up in New York there, where everyone's like, oh, your family in-laws are from there. Like, he's like, I haven't seen the course in 10 years. I just don't think he'd rather stay down at Ohoopee.
Yeah.
No offense to the other place.
Sure. Yeah. No, it is a special spot. And also Adam Scott had some head covers that I really liked. And again, he's like, his nickname is, he's been called the Tanimal or the King of Khaki. And, you know, just because his color palette is, you know, pretty safe. But these Golden Soul golf head covers, man, they are so, and it's just really classic. It's like a classic, like tan leather head cover. He also had one that was like a corduroy and one that was like a wool color. So they're all just like kind of whatever tickles his fancy. But yeah, the head cover game is extremely strong right now on the PGA
Hovland's
Tour.
putter cover with the Viking.
Yeah, I was about to finish. Yeah,
that was good. Were you to finish? I'm sorry. Well, you were. Yeah. I felt like
no. I'm glad you pointed it out. Yeah. It's in Hovland's is just so awesome, and they actually sold that one. If you had a chance to buy the Hovland PLD that they sold, it came with that putter cover, and it's like with the Viking, the menacing Viking, like staring at you. And his putter cover is just beat. Like that thing is really worn out. But yeah, it has Hovey on the side. It's so cool. So again, lot of personality out there on the head covers. The second one that
for our listeners out there, if you ever see a head cover of Wall-E, the robot from obviously the Disney movie, it kind of looks a lot like Gene's robot. And please let me know, because I would love to buy it for Gene. I want his driver to have the robot Wall-E on it. That's what I want. I thought about this last week. I was thinking about this because I know you're out there in Tahoe with your robot. I really want to find Gene a Wall-E robot head cover. So you
want to pamper the robot. I only know like one other person would probably want to pamper the robot more. I
think it's so funny. I would love to, because if I saw a robot at an OEM recently, I know it's one of Gene's Golf Laboratories robot, and I thought to myself, oh, it looks so different. And I'm like, because it doesn't have the wheels on it that we see when we shoot in our videos. Yeah. And all I can think of, it looks like Wall-E every time he drives it around on the range. So anyway, I keep sidetracking this conversation, but I want to find one of these head covers now.
It's kind of funny that you say that, because for our activation tomorrow, we have an audio visual component, and the face on the robot on the screen looks like Wall-E. It's got the big eyes, and it turns and it closes and it smiles. So it's really funny that you say that, because we were looking at it today, and I'm like, that's Wall-E. That's totally the look. So yeah, it's fitting, no doubt.
Prepare for the cease and desist.
It's Wall-B.
There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. That's usually me because I'm like the B level wall. All right. So number 2 that I noticed, and this is something that we've highlighted before. So many players, particularly the ones that we highlight in these bag spies, are using a softer wedge flex. So, for example, a lot of guys going X100 in the irons down to S400 in the wedge shafts. And it's just something that we've seen before. You know, if you're somebody who's familiar with True Temper's Dynamic Gold, the X1 and the S4s, you know that S4 is going to be a little bit softer than X1s, but it's a little bit heavier. And so it's a great option if you're somebody that hits a lot of, you know, half and 3/4 shots. You really feel that golf club. It's something that Tiger Woods popularized when you know, basically when he came out and started using Dynamic Gold. He started using that S4 because he just liked it's a little bit more playable, get a little bit more feel. You're not hitting a ton of full shots with your wedges anyway. So it's certainly something that the pros rely on heavily, and it's not just in True Temper. It was in other shaft options out there as well. But yeah, going firmer in the irons and then dipping down just a little bit softer in the wedges. Number 3, Golf Pride. I mean, yeah, they are sponsored for this podcast, but just going through the bags, I couldn't find one guy that wasn't using a Golf Pride grip. I mean, the sheer dominance that they have out on the PGA Tour in the grip space. I mean, does anybody else have that much of a stranglehold on tour usage? I was trying to think about it.
The only thing I can think of, and this is like, again, one of those like left field items, if people aren't using spikeless shoes, soft spike, like Pride Golf, like the Champ spikes, like
yes,
they crush it. Like they're in everyone's freaking shoes.
Yeah.
But I can't think of, it's either that or it's the Titleist golf ball. Like it's even like, but we're talking like north of 90% with the Golf Pride grips. And I noticed this when I was doing the top players from all the OEMs. Taylor, man, you still owe me those numbers. Like who's using what, and like sometimes you get like a Spieth with Super Stroke or Finau, of course, or Rose.
Lampkin, yeah.
The only other guy is the only other person I can actually think of right now is Hideki, who uses a lot of Iomic stuff. Other than that, it's literally all Golf Pride. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And like specifically, I mean, yes, the Tour Velvet is a wildly popular option, but a lot of guys, at least for the ones that I took photos of for this, were using the New Decade Multi-Compound, which is another great option. So it feels like, well, yes, it's a distant second to the Tour Velvet. There's some big names that are using that, and that multi-compound was popularized by Rory back in like 2010, 2011 when he was
yellow
using
ones,
the black and yellow.
Couldn't keep them in stock.
Oh man, no kidding.
Try working at a golf store when you're people walking in every single day. Are yellows coming out? Are yellows coming out? At some point they're coming out, but I don't know when.
The next one was, and this was just like one guy, but I love this. Brian Harman, we already mentioned the Dustin Johnson using the speeder. He still had a Fujikura speeder 661 Evolution 2 in his 3-wood, which like that's, if you're thinking about it, like that's a pretty old shaft. I mean, that dates back to 2016. So we're talking like an 8-year-old shaft. It's not as old as like John Rahm's when he was using the Aldola, the Tour Green, but it's still up there. So it's just nice to kind of see some of those Easter eggs when you're sifting through bags. And you're like, man, this is a great shaft. But again, with new product coming out all the time, and the manufacturers are trying to get guys in the latest and greatest. Even the shaft manufacturers, like they're trying to get guys in the new stuff. It's still nice to see some holdouts out there. And again, it's a 3-wood. Typically 3-woods are tough to get out of the bags of tour pros, and when they really like them. And Harman in particular was one of those guys where when I was going through, and it's like, oh, you're still playing TS, like TS2 in the fairways. So he's somebody who like, he's not changing.
He's not changing that ugly ass putter too.
Man, that's a great putter.
Look,
It's a great putter. And it has a
it's
cool
good.
story too. It has a cool story.
It's
But
not my taste.
It's not visually appealing to the masses.
As I say to our children, our oldest especially, because she's out there now with other kids, we don't like to yuck on other people's yum. If they like something, you like something, right? These are these little parenting conversations you got to have.
It's the first time I've ever heard that before.
No, it's a good one. I'm sure I got
either.
it. My wife brought it to me. I definitely did not learn it on my own. But you don't go around and criticize if someone has something different that you don't. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean someone else won't like it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to yuck on Brian Harman's yum, but you're never going to see with one of those putters in my bag.
Yeah, it is. It does have a cool story though, because that putter was designed by Clay Long, who during his time at McGregor was the guy behind the Response CT 615 that Jack used to win the 86 Masters, and that was a massive putter too. Even Jack laughed at it when he saw it for the first time and eventually used it. And he basically designed something very similar at TaylorMade. And Brian Harman was like one of the few guys who actually put that oversized version in play, and then he ends up winning the Open Championship with it. So
there were two other models in that line. So
there was yeah, you're right. But that OS was a biggie. It wasn't as big as the one that Sandy Lyle used that one year at the Masters, the Blackhawk, the one that looked like a manhole cover. Remember that?
Oh, no, but Ernie and Schmaltz at one point used that stand-up bloodline putter, which
yeah, but no, this was like you have to go back and look, RB. Go back and Google it.
I think it
was called the Blackhawk. Sandy Lyle used it. It's I swear, like it was probably about as wide as your forearm. I mean,
I'm gonna have to look this up.
It was huge, and you'll laugh because it almost looked. I mean, it was like cartoonish. I'm like, there's no way this is legal, but apparently it was legal. So anyway, the last one that I know that Aaron Dill, like he's our wedge stamping aficionado out on tour, and he does a lot of wedge stamping still, but I didn't see a lot of like stamping. A lot of guys just kind of going with like stock wedges and maybe their initials. There was a point where like when Ricky Fowler had the Call Me Maybe wedge, and that sort of started it like this huge trend of like personality and the stamping on wedges. But I remember the year, I think it was like Robert Streb had Aaron did the island green, the 17th island green stamped on the back of one of the wedges. And there just seemed to be a lot of like really like killer designs. And I know AD's still doing a lot of good stuff, but yeah, it just seems like some guys are going back to the days of like more basic wedges. It's kind of disappointing.
I feel like they changed because they want the sharp grooves that the guys, and I asked Aaron about this. I was like, do you do as much? He goes, if it's a slow day, we love doing funky stuff, but like when we're cooking, like we can't. And so
it makes sense.
Yeah. But no, it is interesting to like, I mean, there's always cool stuff out there, but a lot of times it's more like we see like kids' names and we don't see so much of the real crazy stuff anymore.
Yep. All right. So that's it. That's it for my recap on Bag Spy. Boys, do we have anything else before we get Gene out of here so we can go get some food? We good?
I'm good. I was just hoping he was going to make it.
I was looking at him. At one point he closed his eyes, and it wasn't like Gene was falling asleep. He's like, "Get me out of here."
I'll tell you, man, it's like 88 degrees with like 8% humidity. It's beautiful up here, but man, it is hot and dry. And standing out on that range from 7:30 this morning till 5 p.m. tonight, it took its toll. So
all right.
I feel you, Gene. I did a demo day one time where it was like, you guys want to play golf after like standing out on a driving range for 6 hours? And I'm like, no. I'm like, can we just go grab some food and have a couple of beers? I'll go home. I'll come back late. I'll take a rain check on the golf, please. My back's gonna blow up.
Just brutal.
All right. So let's wrap episode 247 Fully Equipped. We still have plenty that we didn't get to this week that we'll for sure get to on next week's pod. We also, man, we owe the listeners because there's a whole bunch of voicemails too that we haven't gotten to. So maybe we'll get to some of them next week. Open Championship week next week, boys. I'm excited. As always, if you want more gear goodness, check us out on our social channels. We're at Flow Equip Golf on the YouTube page. If you want to consume the pod in video form, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe if you happen to venture that direction. We're also Flow Equip Golf on Instagram and at fully_equipped on Twitter. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to us ramble for an hour and 15 minutes. Hope it was worth it if you made it this far. We'll see you next week.